Hi guys, it's me again, Miss Peltier, back for our 5th installment of our distance learning from Alvin High School. And today, this lesson should have rolled out on April the 1st. It is no April Fool's joke, sorry guys. The assignment for this lesson would be due on the 3rd. So make sure that you're staying on top of your work. Your teachers are sending stuff out to you, and then we have those due dates set up just so that gives us an opportunity to check and see how you're doing. So remember, you in my Google Classroom, I will have in your assignment package, you'll have this video, you'll have the blank notes that go along with this video, you'll also have the filled in notes that go along with this video. So if you wanted to copy them and write notes as we go, as you watch the video, and then you still have the filled in ones you could go back and refer to, and not have to look at the whole video if you didn't want to a second time. And then in addition to that, you'll also have a work assignment as well as an IXL assignment. You can choose whether you want to do the worksheet or whether you want to do the IXL. It doesn't matter to me. If you choose to do the worksheet, you just upload your work. If you choose to do the IXL, you need to mark it as you did it and then send me a message and let me know that you did it via IXL, and we'll take care of that. That way I know to go back and look and see how you did you struggle. Remember with IXL, if you get too frustrated and you've done too many problems, a whole lot of problems, and like only not gotten very far and your score's still pretty low, stop, jump onto one of our Hangouts, ask some questions before you continue, because remember, it just keeps giving you more problems if you're not understanding. Remember our Hangouts, we will have a 9 o'clock Hangout with Mr. Cleland. I will be on the 11 o'clock Hangout. Ms. Blatt does the 1 o'clock Hangout, and Ms. DeMond Bruin does the 2 o'clock Hangout. I'm also included a 7 o'clock Hangout that I will do, especially, I know I had some students who also work and they wouldn't be home in time to be able to see the ones during the day. So if you need to hop on there, feel free, okay? Let us know if you have questions along the way. So today we're going to multiply and divide our rational expressions. Last time we simplified, so just like the rules still were the same for what you did with fractions in grade school that you learned, the rules are still the same when we're multiplying and dividing. So I wrote your rules out for you to remind you. For multiplying, you're going to multiply straight across the top, or the numerator, and straight across the bottom, or the denominator, and then we're going to reduce. So just like you did in grade school, you multiply straight across the top. 2 times 5 gives me 10. Straight across the bottom, 3 times 7 gives me 21. And if that reduced, you would reduce it, but it does not, so that would be our answer. That's what you did back in grade school when you first learned how to work fractions. With dividing, you learned that if you were going to keep the first fraction, you will then change the sign to multiplication and flip the second fraction. And then you multiply just like you did before. So in this basic problem, what you've already learned, we would keep the first, the 2/3 does not change, that's our K part. You probably remember this as being KCF for keep, change, flip. So you keep the first, you change your symbol from division to multiplication, that's the C part, and then the second fraction you're going to flip. So you flip to be, I didn't flip it. You flip to be 7/5. And then multiply straight across, that's your flip part. So keep, change, flip. You're going to multiply straight across the top and get 14. You're going to multiply straight across the bottom and get 15. Those do not reduce, so that would be my solution, or my answer, okay? Those rules do not change when we move on to rational expressions. All rational expressions means is a rational fraction. Expression means you're going to have some variables in there possibly. So, on a problem like this, we have multiplication, but this is a whole number. So remember, a whole number is really just a fraction. We just put it over 1. And then we're still going to multiply straight across the top. When I multiply those together, 3 times 11 gives me 33. x squared times x squared gives me x to the 4th. I do the same thing on the bottom. When I multiply straight across, when I multiply that times 1, I get 13w squared. Nothing reduces. If the numbers, the coefficients would reduce, go ahead and reduce those, but they do not. If the variables reduce those, they do not. So we know that we are finished. But we always want to check and make sure we can reduce. Okay? Now, a problem like number 2. Number 2, again, we have a whole number, so put it over 1. We would be multiplying straight across the top, straight across the bottom. Okay? Because when we get to the division part, I want you to be in the habit of looking at factors. So if this factors, which it does, I could factor this, and so I'm going to rewrite this and have my factors of that, which would be h and h. Factors of 7 would be 7 and 1 to give me a negative 6. My h is 7, my 7 is negative, and my 1 would be positive. Now that's being multiplied by 2. On the denominator, I would have 2, and that's being multiplied by 1. Well, we know we don't need to write the 1. So now you can see that you've got 3 factors, h minus 7, h plus 1, and 2, and you have a 2 at the denominator. So just like you know that you can reduce from simplifying, you can reduce those 2's. And you're left with what you had here. You can, when you're in IXL, if you want to multiply that out, which notice it just multiplies back out to this. So you can give me either the h squared minus 6h minus 7, or you can write it as the factors h minus 7 and h plus 1. Either one is perfectly fine for IXL. Either one is perfectly fine for what you put on your worksheet. It doesn't matter to me. I like, by habit, I just go ahead and when I see something that can factor, if I'm multiplying with fractions, I go ahead and factor it. If it doesn't, if it factors in, like on this where nothing cancels, it's no big deal. All I did was factor, it didn't hurt anything, okay? So, number 3. Very similar, but there's just more work to do, okay? We're gonna, notice it's a division, so we're gonna be doing our keep, change, flip. In the process, we're also going to do our factoring, just like we did in the one a second ago. So, I'm still going to have my p minus 4, and then on the denominator, I'm going to factor that. P and P. And factors of 11 that will give me 12 would be 1 and 11. Excuse me. I need a plus and a plus. So I keep the first fraction, I change it to multiplication, and since all of this would be over 1, when I flip it, I'm going to have 1 on the top, and then I'm going to go ahead and factor in the same step that I flip, if that's okay with y'all. When I factor this, I'm going to have 2p, and I'm going to have p. And then my factors of 4. Well, I would think it's probably 2 and 2, but if this were a 2, that would mean I would have had a common factor to begin with, and I don't. So that gives me a clue that this will be 4 and 1. So notice this gives me 8, and this gives me 1, so I'll get a negative 9 if they're both minus. Okay, using that double chin that we talked about in our earlier video for factoring. And we can easily erase that if we did that real lightly with pencil, okay? So multiplication, we would go straight across the top, straight across the bottom, but when it's multiplication with these giant fractions, we know that it would just be a string of parentheses next to each other. So you can always, when you're doing multiplication, reduce anything on the top, which notice this quantity of p minus 4 has a partner down here that has the same quantity p minus 4 that I can reduce. So I don't have to take an extra step to rewrite those. I can just reduce those right there, okay? And then when I go straight across the top, straight across the bottom, across the top I just get a 1, and across the bottom I get a p plus 1 times a p plus 11 times a 2p minus 1. And again, on IXL, or whether it's the written, you can leave those as your quantities. You don't have to multiply those back out. You can if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to, okay? All right, I thought I had some more. So, a couple more things. We just want to practice and make sure that we get good at these. Notice this would all be over 1. It's another division, so I'm going to be doing my keep, change, flip. I'm going to keep and factor at the same time. So, on the top, I'm going to have 3K and K with my factors of 10 because I want to get a 17 in the middle. I'm going to put my 5 over here and my 2 over here because that will give me 15 and this will give me 2. And 15 and 2 give me 17. So since they're both pluses, that tells me these are both going to be pluses. The bottom is going to just be K plus 5. If you like to wrap those in parentheses so that you can recognize that as a quantity, that's perfectly fine. It's not going to hurt anything. Change my division to a multiplication and flip the second one. So my 1 will go to the top and my 3K plus 2 goes in the bottom. Notice I put it in parentheses so we can see that as one giant quantity and not try to reduce each one of those. Notice my K plus 5 and K plus 5 reduce. My 3K plus 2, and I have a 3K plus 2 in the bottom. So those reduce also. When everything reduces, you're left with just a 1. So seems like an awful lot of work to get just a 1, but actually it's kind of nice because we know everything worked. So last example, I usually try to do about 4 or 5 with you guys so that you can see what's going on and I can keep it under 15 minutes. I know we're getting close, so let's make sure we factor these. So first, always look for your common factor. Notice in these when I have a ton of p's and there's no common number factor, I'm going to go ahead and just take out a p squared and I'll be left with a 5p squared, a 9p, and a 4. On the bottom, there's no factor, no common factor. That's just one quantity. Multiplication, so my 4p minus 5 just stays in the top because it's multiplication. On the bottom, I can take out a p squared. I'm left with a 5p and a plus 4. Okay? So if you notice, you've already got some things that can be reduced. You have a 4p minus 5 and you have a 4p minus 5. You can go ahead and reduce those. You also have a p squared and a p squared. You can get rid of both p's in the top and the bottom, leaving me with 5p squared plus 9p plus 4 over 5p plus 4. Now, we want to try to factor that and see if it can be reduced any further. So 5p and p, and then factors of 4 to give me 9. I'm going to need my 4 here and my 1 here, so that gives me 5 and 4 both being plus. And then I have a 5p plus 4 in the denominator. Remember, if you need to make that a quantity, make it a quantity. Notice my quantities now reduce, leaving me with just p plus 1. Okay? So that's a pretty quick multiply and divide rational expressions. You do have an IXL assignment, which is A2 N.5, and you need a SMART score of 80. 80 would be fine on this one. If you want to go higher, remember, you can always go higher, but an 80 will get you adequate for what we need you to cover. On some of them, previously we did 90s because we needed you to get to some of those little bit more challenging problems because that's what our Algebra 2 pushes us to, okay? So don't forget to hop on for our Google Hangouts if you have questions, or send us a message in Google Classroom. Thanks. See y'all later. Be safe. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Have a good day.